You are now listening to The Social Hour.
They're not PC. So if occasional foul language turns you off, then you have all been warned. This is the calm before the storm.
I'm Mexican with a GED. What do you want from me?
Get ready for the social hour.
Live from Deece World Studios in Spokane, Washington. This is The Social Hour. On today's show, comedian Sandra Doss. And now your host. Now that Kim and Kanye are getting divorced, he finally has a chance. With Kanye, Deece Casillas. Malam Keen, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is The Social Hour. I'm Deece. You know who I am. You know where you're at, guys. And if you like what you listen to, tell a friend. That's the biggest thing, guys. Let other people know you like the show, the guests, everything we do here at Social Hour Comedy. We've got a bunch of stuff going on, so we appreciate you hanging around and being a patron of that, guys. Go to DeeceComedy.com, check out everything going on, like I said, or you can go to Patreon.com/DeeceComedy and subscribe, get some behind-the-scenes content, some exclusive stuff we got for you. The Dollar Bin Podcast, the new comic book review show, episodes every Friday. If you listen and watch on YouTube, you get some behind-the-scenes bonus content, too. So check that out, guys. Otherwise, we're going to get into it today, coming all the way from Philadelphia. A new friend of mine, Sandra Doss. She's a comedian. She was a lawyer. She's from Panama. We talk about a lot of fun stuff. Give it up, everyone, for comedian Sandra Doss.
Especially now, with Zoom and everything, it's one of those blessings in disguise,
Yeah.
People like me. Philadelphia's okay, but it's not one of the, go-to places. Although I have New York City nearby, and it's not convenient, super convenient,
Yeah.
but you could do it. I took an improv class at UCB there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it very much, and I thought, I'm not far, so this is my chance,
Yeah.
to go and take classes there. So
How
yeah.
far is, sorry, 1 second. Hold that thought there, Sandra. And how far is New York from Philadelphia, though? What is it, like 3 hours, something like that?
No, it's more like an hour 45. It depends, on traffic and all that.
Yeah.
And also it depends on whether you go by train or you drive,
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. The East Coast actually has a competent public transit system. That is one thing the West Coast does not have, is a good
That's true.
Public transit system. Or Portland and San Francisco have their own personal ones that do pretty well. But beyond that, there's no good mass transit system, probably outside of the original colonies. So,
Yeah. So, so that's I've been fortunate, that it's not that far. And DC is like 3 hours away from here.
Okay.
So,
One day I'm going to have to, I spent some time out in Boston years ago and around that area, kind of up and down. But one day I'm going to go explore the East Coast. My sister actually lives in Pittsburgh, and I've never been out there. But I've always wanted to go to Pennsylvania, specifically Philadelphia, among other places. But yeah, I don't know why. I've been a lot of places in the country, and there's a lot of there's very few that I haven't been that I want to go to, and for some reason Philadelphia has always been on the list as a place I want to see.
Oh, you can? Yeah, you have to come.
Yeah. Are you from Philadelphia originally, Sandra?
No, actually, I was born in Panama.
Okay.
And my mom was Panamanian. She passed away. Both my parents passed away, but my dad was in the military. He was a Midwesterner.
Okay.
Yeah. Usual, Anglo-Saxon, stock. And he was in the military. And so he was assigned to the bases in Panama. And that's how they ended up meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was a nurse, and I guess they met at a party, with a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And they married, and my dad fell in love with the country. And so we were lucky that we stayed there. We never moved to another base, and I don't know, how that happened, but yeah. So I lived there,
Until
and then
until you were how
moved-
old?
What's that?
Until you were how old? How long?
Well, I basically moved when I got married.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, one of us had to move to where the other one lived, and it was easier for me because I was a U.S. citizen. I spoke the language. So yeah, I knew it probably was something that would happen eventually. So yeah, I ended up moving, but but I've tried to go back. Well, I can't go that frequently, but it's not that far, So I go every 2 years or something like that.
Panama is beautiful. I've been down there a bunch. I like it a lot.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Good for you.
Yeah, yeah. I go to Central America a ton. Costa Rica, Belize, Panama, Nicaragua, Honduras. I've been all over around there. I love it. I'm actually in the works of probably going to be moving to Costa Rica in the next couple of years. Is kind of the plan. So we've got, and then just kind of coming up to the States occasionally. So yeah.
That sounds good. Sounds good. I've been there a couple of times. I guess, most Panamanians really don't have a reason to go there unless you like volcanoes, and we're kind of, I don't know. To me, it's a terrifying thing. So yeah, I even have relatives there. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have in Colombia too.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah. Panama has more ties to Colombia than to Costa Rica, even though they're not far.
Yeah.
And I have family there as well. But I've been living, since '97 in the U.S.
Okay.
And when we got married, and so, yeah.
So I mean, it wasn't whole. I mean, you'd been to America, you knew about the culture. Your dad was American. It wasn't a complete shock, or there was anything. I mean, you'd had a lot of that experience. But what was it like growing up in Panama, though, for you? What was that experience like?
Well, it was a great experience because, fortunately, Panama has always done better than the neighboring countries. It's very Americanized, and its economy is very closely tied to the American economy.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's kind of sheltered. So, people kind of have it good. I mean, I'm not saying there is poverty. Of course, it's a developing country. There's corruption and all that, but it's not as severe in many ways. And so I had a very good childhood, even though I grew up during a dictatorship.
Sure.
I didn't realize because, we were not involved in politics.
Yeah.
So my dad, he worked for the DOD. I mean, he was in the military. So it's like we lived in a little, bubble, but yeah, until I went to law school afterwards in Panama. That's when I realized that, hey, things are, it's, I better not speak my mind if I ever want to say something political,
Yeah.
And and also I had to hide the stickers of my car because they had a sticker to get on base.
Yeah.
And many times there were groups that were anti-American or, and they could set my car on fire. If they had like a protest or a demonstration, they would block a street and pick a car and set it on fire.
Yeah.
And my car looked pretty sweet because it was a Dodge Dart and it had a big sticker. So, so I started covering that. But I had a very good experience. In general, I did.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved it.
So you went to law school in Panama, you said?
I did. I went to law school in the U.S. too. I got a graduate degree at UVA because the original plan was that I would teach at the University of Panama, or the idea was that I would teach.
Yeah.
But that ended up not happening, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
how much of that transfers over? I mean, obviously the knowledge application is similar, but the laws are so different between Panama and America, I assume. So, I mean, what of that education that you started with in Panama was kind of applicable to your schooling once you got to America?
Well, I was in a program that was a graduate program. So the people in that program were already lawyers, and most of them from other countries. The only ones that graduated in the U.S., I guess, were the JAG people. Yeah, and it's totally different because it's a completely different legal system too. I mean, different legal cultures. Yeah, but it's I don't know. I guess it sort of gives you the training of being the way you analyze a problem or you approach issues and apply rules to facts. It gets you thinking in a similar way.
Yeah. So I mean, you're still practicing law now, is that right?
Well, sporadically.
Sporadically.
Now I'm focusing more on comedy.
What kind of lawyer? I mean, did you have a specific field in law?
No, that's the thing. I kind of ended up being a kind of a Jane of all trades, if you will.
Yeah.
And so, and I did things that were not really law, more project management, etc.
Yeah.
So, it's not like I had a whole, a career in a particular field.
Yeah.
And after some years, I became interested in creative writing and in embracing some passions, that had nothing to do with law or anything, but in a way they kind of do, because I do remember, at least in Panama, that I did some litigation, and it was pretty much like, I mean, it's like acting, I mean, you're not making things up, but you have to be persuasive.
Yeah.
And body language comes into it a whole lot. And at least twice, the judge had to call to order because people were laughing. So, along the way, I saw that I was interested in the absurd and things that were funny, and things that were that would make people laugh, and also why people laughed, So I thought, well, maybe I'm interested more in psychology, because this is, reading an audience is, it's something that being a lawyer kind of probably helps you.
Yeah, definitely.
Or at least I think it helps me. And also the writing, it's something that involves writing and creating out of nothing.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating.
Yeah, it seems like I've known a lot of lawyers or people who went to law school and then ended up going into comedy or writing, or it seems like a common thing. I'm not sure what that is. I haven't been able to put it together as to why. But yeah, a lot of people who do, I know so many people who were like, yeah, I have a successful law practice, but I'm doing open mics at night, 5 minutes. I'm like, man, what? You went to school for years and like all that. And, but I mean, eventually it's like you said, it's your passion. You want to pursue some, so there is a reward in not necessarily just making the money, but being able to do something you enjoy and really put your creative juices into.
Yes, especially in my case, because I'm 54, so I'm a very late bloomer, as a comedian, and I really admire and respect people who discover at a very young age that that's what they want to do, because I mean, they're jumping without a parachute, when they say, oh, I don't want to do college, or I don't want to pursue anything, serious in case this doesn't work. I want to do comedy and I want to do it now.
Yeah.
And there's value in that. In my case, well, I also was raised to believe that it's better to have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And another thing is that in many well, the U.S. has it's a larger country with a larger population, but at least in Panama, I can tell you that a lot of people say, well, comedy or being a singer or being an actor, I mean, that's BS,
Yeah.
do something serious. Or, if you're at a party and people are talking and they say, well, I have three sons and one of them is a doctor, the other one an engineer, and the other one is a comedian. They'll say, well, what happened to him? What happened?
Yeah, where they
what
go
did
wrong?
he go wrong with that one? Did he hit his head or her head? I mean, it's like it's a bullshit thing. You stand there and just tell jokes and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
People don't realize that it's actually very difficult, that you have to be disciplined to generate material, that you have to polish it, that you have to perform it, and that it's a process, and you have to really keep track of of the jokes that hit, the ones that don't, and it's something that requires daily work.
Oh yeah, and it is a lot of work. But I mean, I feel like, something you said where, starting at your age, being 54, I think you said, Sandra. Yeah. I mean, that it almost seems like it's that, or starting young, are the best options, because when you're young, you have nothing to lose. Like, you're gonna lose a night at your minimum wage job you hate. When you're someone like your age, you're established, you've got a career. If things don't work out in comedy, you're not losing out except for on something you enjoyed. Whereas people in their middle, they're kind of on their way to something at that point. It's a hard U-turn. So.
Yeah. And I'm very fortunate that my husband is very, very supportive.
Yeah.
If anything, he's the one who said, well, do it. You really want to do it, do it.
Yeah.
Because I would rather have you happy,
Smart
and
husband.
So I'm like, okay. And so my family is very supportive.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So when did you do your first open mic?
My first open mic, I did some years ago, probably 2014, right after I took my first comedy course.
Okay.
In Philly at Helium Comedy Club. But then something happened, life got in the way, and I didn't do it. I had to go back to regular life.
Yeah.
And I kind of put it in the back of my mind, thinking, well, I'll get back to it. And also I thought, well, maybe, should I really try it? I started having all kinds of doubts. And then I had another opportunity, and so I said, yes, I'm going to do it. And so now I'm doing it. And frankly, the pandemic has been good in that regard, because I have no excuses.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. I'm able to do other things, and because I'm at home. And so I've been doing a lot more open mics. I joined a network of like-minded people, of other comedians, called Hot Breath.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
It's run by a comedian whose name is Joel Byers, out of Atlanta.
Okay.
And so that has been very good. I've met so many people. They're very supportive. It's a very supportive environment, to try things and to give feedback and to grow. And so from there, I've been connecting with comedians in my area, mm-hmm. and going to open mics around and all that. And some in person, but mostly on Zoom, and I've been writing more and doing more stuff, contests here and there. And the idea is to be ready, when life opens up again, then, I'll be ready for doing things live,
So did you kind of get back into comedy then during the pandemic, or what? Yes. Oh, okay.
I would say that's when I I decided I'm going to do this,
Yeah.
this is a job,
Yeah.
let's try this as a job. And I'm writing in Spanish as well. And so, for different audiences, because, it happens often that people go to the Zoom shows, but they don't get certain jokes because they don't get the reference, or because there's a little bit of a language barrier.
Sure.
So
Actually,
I've been trying to play with that, both languages.
I just saw an ad online today for a show that someone was looking for 4 female comics that can do 15 to 20 minutes who can do it in Spanish. So yeah, I mean, it's out there. People want it. There is a market for everything. If you have the ability, you may as well do it.
That's right.
What do you think it's going to be like for you when you go back, when things open up and you have the opportunity to go out and go to the clubs and go to the open mics? How do you think that transition is going to be for you?
Well, I think I'm going to have to line up all the open mics that I can hit, as many per week realistically. And I don't think Zoom is going anywhere. So I'm going to try and kind of be selective with the Zoom ones that are more, that will have a better payoff, as far as, be more conducive to getting more gigs or whatever. And also I want to produce shows around here, closer to where I live, for convenience, but also I live in suburban Philadelphia. And a lot of times people don't want to go to Center City. They would like to just go out around town, here, and there's nothing going on here. So I think there are 2 places. I've already talked to the people there, and they said, yeah, we like the idea. That would be fun to have a comedy night here at least once a month.
Yeah.
Let's start like that. And so, yeah. Right now I'm not thinking in terms of money because, I think I'm so new, and there are so many comedians. I'm trying to get better. I'm
Sure.
trying to get really good at my craft, and then, then become more particular about money. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it just takes time. There's no leapfrogging, and there's no speeding up the process. Some people are naturally funnier than others, or spend a little more time on it. But really, it's just reps. It's just practice. It's anytime. I've been doing comedy in some form or fashion for nearly 15 years now, and when new comics ask me, they're like, hey, what should I do? If they're new at open mics, I'm like, hit 5 mics a week for the next 2 years. And if you haven't killed yourself yet, come see me and we'll talk about the next step. But it's like, that's kind of really the only option, is just work as often as you can, and try to get those jokes sharper and better, and put together, a good 20 minutes, and shop it around and work it, in front of different audiences, not just your audience, not the same audience all the time.
Right. Well, that's another thing that it's going to be a challenge for me, I think, because, depending on the audience, they may not be, now this may be just me, the way I see things. I hope I'm wrong, but, like a college audience, they might see, oh, here comes my mom, you know what I mean? So, or who knows? So, I'm relatively clean. That's another thing,
Yeah.
And I have a lot of insecurities, as you might imagine. Well, what happens if the person before me, has a different vibe, and I have to completely bring down the room to my level of, non-blue,
Well,
so,
I would say don't look at it as bringing the room down. I would look at it as elevating the room up to your level.
Yeah, but bringing that energy or whatever was created there,
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, but I will say in my experience, it's not about the level of blueness, we'll say, but the level of comedy, period. If it's funny, if it's good, It doesn't
That's
really
right.
matter what you're doing. People get on board for it. You
Yeah,
know?
that's the thing. Whatever what's funny is funny,
Yeah.
and that has to be the common denominator, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm constantly learning from other comedians. Everybody has a different style,
Mm-hmm.
young or old. You know, I like improv too, so
Sure.
I think people who are into improv also kind of are better at adjusting, because that's what improv is about.
Yeah.
Adjusting every second.
Yeah, that's really that's good advice. I tell new comics all the time. I encourage even comics who've been around for a while and haven't never done it. Take an improv class, even if it's just one intro to improv class. It'll make you better at being a comedian. It'll just make you better at everything in life. I mean, if at a cocktail party, at a interview, anything, you're just going to be better at interacting with life. And I actually teach in 8-week comedy and improv course, and I just did the last 2 weeks was the improv session as part of it. So I kind of teach these people who how that really can be very, very important when you are doing stand up. The ability to adjust on the fly, the ability to think quickly, and it also gets you over some stage fright or some anxiety of performing a lot.
Definitely. That's another thing that I would like to do, and I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think I would like to have an improv group that I perform with.
Yeah.
And maybe teaching it to executives. To different groups that are not necessarily professionals of want to get into improv, but people who are looking to create more team building, or or improve their skills, their people skills at work, or their sales skills.
Yeah.
I thought it was so fun. I enjoyed it very, very much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great little arm or building block for comedy. That's for sure. So.
Well, my improv, the people that I met at UCB, the majority of them told me that they don't think that they could do stand up because they said that they would be terrified of failing alone. Because in improv, you fail together, or you succeed together. But on improv, and I'm sorry, in stand up, you're on stage by yourself, and you bomb alone, and you have to be okay with that.
You do have that safety net of the other players when you're doing improv. I've known quite a few guys who folks who started in improv and moved to stand up. There's actually a couple of people I've convinced to go from improv to stand up and helped them write jokes. Been like, all right, just bring your stories to me and let's sit down and figure out these long form monologues and let's punch them up and make them faster, cut out the fat and make it into jokes. Like if you have if you can be a improv comedian and do these monologues, I'm like, you can do stand up. You just got to trim it, get do the economy of words, trim it down, get the laughs per minute up, figure out the joke in each line, and go from there.
Yeah, I think it's something that people can jump into if you're already comfortable with improv.
Yeah.
I'd like to do both, hopefully. But I'm really finding that comedy is a lot more challenging than I thought. And actually, it's a good thing because it makes me feel that I'm not doing something that's just get up there and just shoot the breeze or say whatever, or talk about butts or farts. It's much more than that. Yeah, something that's challenging, that's mentally challenging, and it's physically challenging too, depending. And it's forcing me also to get in shape again, because that makes you better at act out. And it's something that I'm enjoying tremendously.
Good. What kind of other challenges are you finding with comedy. I mean, it's got to be different again doing it via Zoom, and how that may, the challenges. Some challenges may go away. Some new challenges may rise up when you're in front of a live crowd.
Yeah. Well, I realize that on Zoom everything is very controlled, and so you don't get heckled, for instance, which I'm terrified of. I am terrified. I have played in my mind all kinds of heckling scenarios, and I always think, well, I better have like some comebacks, or something, like ready to go. But of course, that doesn't cover every situation. So yeah, that's something that that I guess I'm going to have to deal with when the moment comes.
Yeah.
In that I've never experienced on Zoom. I mean, I have experienced people not paying attention, which it's terrible too. When people are like, they're out and they go to a comedy club and they're with their friend. There's a comedian there, but they're talking. And then it's like, man, I understand, but you came to a comedy club.
Yeah.
You have to listen.
What did you think was going to happen here?
I know. I know. And and I mean, I've been to shows where it's happened, and I've been in the audience, and the comedian says, "Hey, and I'm like, well, they had it coming." But then it's like you don't know how the audience will react to that. Like I reacted well, but some people are like, well, now this guy is like, you want me to laugh, and you're like chastising people,
Yeah. It's usually the audience is on board with chastising these hecklers or the people talking, making noise, because they're disrupting the show, and the majority of the people came to just see the show. And really, it's just about getting the audience on board on your side and pitting the audience against the heckler. That's my favorite thing to do, is I just get the rest of the audience to hate the heckler, and then it just kind of, the problem solves itself.
Yeah. And I think in the majority of cases, they're with you, because, they're these people having this conversation, they're ruining the night for the experience for them. Paid, so yeah. And, also, since I'm relatively clean, also I kind of have to be relatively clean because I'm a mom, I'm a wife, that's another thing. I feel that if I were like in my 20s and I had nothing to lose, okay, I can just explore everything, and see, but I have to kind of guard a little bit of my image. I mean, I'm naturally on the clean side, but maybe I would take more chances if I didn't have to watch it.
Well, I mean, what's your image though? These people don't know you. That's the joy of comedy, is you get to lie, and you can be whoever you want to be. I mean, I tell my students all the time, I'm like, you lie more for longer. Like you can be whoever you want to be, and I mean, no one's fact checking you. No one's gonna follow you home and make sure you really have a schnauzer if you're talking shit about your dog or something. You can. Wait, you do have a schnauzer?
No, I have a dog.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, did I guess? Like, geez, I'm like, I guess the exact dog you have.
No.
But I mean, don't worry. When you start thinking about your image and what these people may think of you, you censor yourself. Really, you could let your whole self out and find a whole new level of comedy that you could break through.
Yeah, but how people many times. I mean, and that's fine. If they were comfortable with that, talk about their sex life or sex or whatever. It's something that I probably can't do because I have a son that I don't want to embarrass, and now everything is like accessible,
Yeah.
So, and I'm not inclined to go there anyway, but
Sure.
I think that if I was like a younger woman that's not married, doesn't have children or whatever, I could just say whatever. And so what,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not something that I want to do anyway, but so that's kind of one thing. But of course, I'm new at this, so as I find my voice, which is something that I always like to know if more experienced comedians feel that they have found. Have you found your voice in 15 years?
Oh yeah. I relatively, I mean, it's changed a little bit since my early inception, but I did a lot of, I did some radio and I did a lot of writing, and I was kind of writing as a character when I was writing comedy too, when I was writing comedy articles, and I kind of had, before I was doing stand-up as much as I am now, I kind of cultivated a character essentially, which has carried over to my stage very much. But yeah, I mean, it's just you'll gravitate towards what you like to talk about and what works for you, and you'll find a combination of those things. And yeah, I mean, I think within the first, if you do it enough, within about 5 years, you'll really kind of have a grasp on what your voice is. And, they say within about 10 years, you're really, really just honed in, locked in, and pretty confident in it. And you just get better. It's just it's just one of those things. You just literally just get better at it the more you do it. It's just that simple. So, so yeah, I mean, you keep doing it, and you'll find if you want to talk about those things, maybe you'll explore them, or maybe you'll just keep going the direction you're in, and that's the path for you. That's the way to do it. So,
right, yeah.
How do your kids feel about you doing comedy?
I have one son, and only one.
Okay.
One child, and he's supportive. I felt so good when he said, "Mom, you really are funny." So I guess before that he thought, well, my mother wants to do this, but I don't know.
Yeah.
She just wants to do this, and but then it's like one day, I don't know what it is that he heard or read, and he thought, hey, yeah, you are a comedian.
How old's your son?
He's 15.
15. I feel like that's a good age to be, he's online. He knows what's going on. You can't hide much from kids these days. Like, I mean, personally, if my mom was doing comedy, I would have loved to seen her, be real and be honest on stage. And, so I think you have an opportunity to really, be whoever you want to be. I think he'd embrace it.
Yeah, well, he's very supportive, and I'm very happy about that. And I think he has some comedic talent himself. Of course, he hasn't shown any interest in this, but he can find the absurd, and I think he understands that connection between setup and punchline, automatically, and that's good,
Yeah.
Good skill to have, He understands that it's, surprise. It's what,
Right.
Whatever way you get to that surprise element, that's what makes people laugh, whatever it's unexpected.
Yeah, the tension, releasing that tension is what gets the laughs. Yeah.
Right.
So where are you drawing your material from? I mean, do you talk a lot about your family, or from being a lawyer, or growing up in Panama? I mean, do you draw from your past at all, that kind of stuff? What do you?
I draw a lot from my daily life.
Okay.
So from my family, my current life, I'd say. Well, I guess I mentioned some things about growing up, and not necessarily Panama, because believe it or not, I'm working on material about Panama, but the thing is that not enough people know where Panama even is.
Really?
So, when they hear, oh, she's Hispanic, they think, oh, she's Mexican.
Yeah.
Or she's Puerto Rican or Dominican, or if it's in Miami, whatever.
Okay,
well, in Miami,
Cuban.
Miami would be easier for me to talk about Panama, because in Miami, there's more people that would know about Panama. That's kind of the only place where I could do more Panama-related topics. People don't know. Why? Because it's a small country. There are very few people, and nobody moves out of Panama because they're happy there. So the only thing that I get, and I'm working on a joke, is you mentioned that you want to move to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people, a lot of people actually ask me, oh, you're from Panama. I went to Costa Rica last summer. And so I'm like, so why do they think that's relevant to me?
Yeah,
it's like, oh, let me get her. They go out of their way. Let me go after this lady who just said she's from Panama. and I have to tell her that I went to Costa Rica last year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay,
Because
there's one, there's two, there's three. Why?
it's the same continent. They're just like, we.
Yeah. But I'm like, I wish I would like to know if the same thing happens to people from other places, or maybe they don't know that they're different places. Sometimes I think they don't know, so I'm trying to play with that, and also play with a little bit of rivalry that Panamanians have with Costa Ricans, as is usual with any countries that are neighbors, there's a rivalry there. So, but other things are not as relatable unless my audience has a lot of military. If I see that my audience has a lot of military that's over 50, oh yeah, they'll get it.
They'll know.
They'll get military reference. Anybody younger, maybe not,
That is surprising that people don't know where Panama is. I guess I assume that, I don't know. Like I said, I've been there a couple times. I knew where it was before I went. But I guess, ugly Americans, they don't know shit.
Well, I know someone who actually was studying to become a librarian. And one day she said, you're going to forgive me, but I'm going to need you to remind me where Panama is. Where's Panama again? And I thought, she's going to be a librarian. This is like not hard. I mean, it's not like you have to look to the other side of the world, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And that always stayed with me, She did not become a librarian, by the way. So yes.
I'm more curious about what kind of studying you have to do to become a librarian. I didn't know there was like a course you have to is it like a Carrington College, like become a learn the Dewey Decimal System. If you know your ABCs.
I have a joke about that actually that was inspired in the fact that I know someone this person, and also my reaction, which was like yours, because for years I thought, of course, as a kid, I thought, oh, they have so much power because they get to shut you up.
Yeah.
All they do is shh, shh, shh. Wouldn't that be sweet to do that all day?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's all they do, and put books back in a shelf. I don't know. I guess they have to learn like something called library sciences, and I don't know what.
I don't know what that. Yeah. Program. I don't know if all they have to do is shush people. That means my girlfriend's a librarian.
There you go. I'm a librarian. I'm a librarian sometimes.
It's the whole thing. Yeah. I would never would have guessed. I would have just that's just a job I thought you applied for, and you just became a librarian. I didn't think there was more to it.
I thought so too. Thought so too. But apparently, you have to have like a master's, or it's you need to have like more than your regular bachelor's or something.
Interesting.
I don't know if all those classifications and numberings and whatever, that requires some specialized knowledge. I don't know.
Well, I guess now I know. Next time I go to a library, which will be never, because I don't think they exist anymore. I think they're all just homeless shelters now. Like the library. What's that? I think that's the place where they hide all the books, right? I don't know.
I think a lot of senior citizens still like to, go there and socialize and check out physical books or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still interested in growing up in Panama, because I love that area down there, and I love that culture. I love, just kind of Latino culture. I grew up in it. I love, I lived in Mexico for a while. What is there anything about Panama that would surprise people? Tell people, is there something that people don't know about it?
Yes. One thing that people don't know about is that if you pick 5 Panamanians, none will look alike. They will not look like they're from the same country.
Yeah.
Their names may not even give you a clue. And the reason is that, Panama has always been, the meeting place, hub of the world,
yeah.
For trade. I mean, that's kind of its destiny, from the very beginning. And Panama is sort of an accidental country. In its population, it's kind of grown by, by accident in a way, because it's been mostly the place of shelter for people who have had to leave their countries for whatever reason. More recently, Venezuela and Colombia, But I mean, from its beginnings, I mean, there's a large Chinese population. And people don't know, that a lot of Chinese came to Panama to build a canal. And a lot of people from the West Indies came to Panama to build a railroad and then the canal. And then, they stayed. They ended up staying. Some people went back home, but many ended up staying.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I remember I read something that said, and I thought it was very true. It's like people don't realize when they become a Panamanian. It just happens. And before you think that, I'm going home. Oh yeah, I'm from Spain. But then after some decades, you're no longer from Spain, and you find that you have married somebody from the place, from Panama.
Yeah. And
your children no longer sound like Spaniards. That's not their country anymore. I mean, they see it with, they're fond of the country that their family came from, but they're Panamanians. And it's interesting. I have a good friend who's Chinese Panamanian and lives in Texas. And he always says, people always look at me weird when I say that I'm a Hispanic. Yeah, I want to belong because I belong. And people are like, come on. They think that I'm making fun of people, because he's completely ethnically Chinese.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing. In Panama, at least, maybe in some other places, people mix more. Well, in Panama, they mix a lot, but some people have remained marrying other, fellow, like Chinese or fellow Greeks, or, so they are ethnically, Chinese or Greek or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But they're Panamanian nationals, and they've lived there. They eat the food, they're part of the culture. So that's kind of unique. That's very unique. I remember going to a wedding. By the way, it was a wedding in Arcadia, California.
Okay.
And at the reception, one person there was a Chinese Panamanian, and he was speaking Spanish to me and other people. And then this Chinese American from San Francisco, I think he had a few drinks. He got up and he said, "Hey, look at that guy. He's Chinese and he's speaking Spanish." And then my friend said, "Hey, look at that guy. He's Chinese and he's speaking English." And then he said, "Oh yeah, you're right."
Yeah, so it turns out you can learn other languages no matter what.
Well, no, I mean the Chinese Americans, for instance, they don't realize that that English is their language and that's their culture, and they're Chinese.
Yeah.
So people expect them to speak Chinese,
Right. And then
the same with this guy that was speaking Spanish, and so people don't often seem very surprised. Like a friend told me a few months ago, "Hey, I met, the rabbi of my congregation is Panamanian. And he is, his Hispanic as far as his culture. That's not his, not his ethnicity or religion." And I said, yeah. And they just couldn't get over it,
Wow. Yeah. That, that melting pot in other countries, people don't realize it happens. It's more than just America,
Yes.
You find that a lot in, Central and South America, especially on the Caribbean side. I feel like that's very, very common.
Yeah. Yeah. On my mother's side also, we're very, very mixed.
Really?
Yeah. My mom, actually, I'm doing some research because I want to know more about her family, because I know everything about my dad's family, because, everything is well kept. All the records are well kept in the U.S. and you can access everything online, but not in Panama. So I want to know when people came to the country, through which point of entry, what brought them there,
Yeah.
What made them come to this very, far away place?
How are you doing your research, and where were some of these people from? Do you know?
Well, my mother's paternal grandfather was from India.
Oh, wow.
And so he came to Panama for a reason I don't know.
Yeah.
Of course, I know he was a barber, and I know that he was from a lower caste, but I don't know more. So basically, what I'm doing now is trying to get in touch with other people whose grandfathers or great grandfathers were from India, who are from the same region, you know, where he had his family.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, well, there are other people from the same country. They probably were on the same boat. Maybe they traveled together.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they knew each other, and they can tell me more, you know. Because I know that my great grandfather really tried to assimilate, and he worked so hard that we just don't know anything.
Yeah. What part of Panama did he land in? You know, is that or did you guys grow up in also same area that he was in, or?
Yeah, he I don't know where he I don't know exactly where he got into the country.
Sure.
Now, mind you, at the time, Panama was part of Colombia, so it was not Panama. So who knows? Now I'm thinking that the records could be in Colombia.
Yeah.
Because it was before the independence. But he settled in a province that borders Costa Rica, by the way.
Okay.
You may have been there. Have you been to Bocas?
Yeah. Yep. I have.
Well, that's where my mother's family's from.
Oh, I love that area.
Yes. So, and it's a magical place. It's
Yeah.
a magical place. And so that is where he ended up. And that is where he met the woman that he ended up marrying, who was not from India. Actually, he had to change his religion, his name, everything. And she was from Costa Rica originally.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why she ended up coming to Panama. So all that is part of my research.
Did you meet your grandparents on your mom's side?
I did. Yeah. So these were their parents. You know, this was like a generation before. Yeah. I met my grandparents, yes.
I mean, were you able to kind of ask them any information before, or did you have any thoughts about it before they passed, or was this kind of like you started working on it after they were? After, in recent years, actually, you know, that's something that I always kick myself in the butt for, because at the time, I don't know, I guess I was too young, and I didn't really have that interest or that discipline or Sure.
you know, the presence of mind to write down everything or whatever. My mom thought that she knew, and she was kind of happy with that.
Yeah.
Because she knew more than her sister or her cousins, because she was kind of interested in this more than everybody else. But the information she had was not accurate. So, you know, I've discovered, you know, more facts, and I have more data now. Now I know that she was mistaken.
Yeah.
You know, after some things. But she didn't write anything down either. So, like a couple of days ago, I called one of my great aunts that's still alive, and I asked her. I mean, she's clear of mind, but she does not remember the details. You know, so now I have like the name of her grandmother, but it's just the first name. Like, her name was Luisa. I'm like, okay, so that's not very helpful.
Yeah, it's you
know,
it's something, but it's not a lot.
Right. So I had to go and search in the church records in Bocas.
Okay.
You know? So I had to go and get these books that were enormous, all handwritten and full of dust. And
there's no Control F or just search. You know.
Yeah, and I did a little bit, but I needed more time. So that's kind of something that I will have to go there and do exclusively, you know?
Yeah.
Just devote all my time to go through all those books and cross-reference everything.
Well, what an interesting project, and rewarding when it pays off, because I feel like, you know, knowing that history, especially, you know, having a rich history like that, I feel like there is a lot there. You know, I mean, not that maybe just in America. I think Americans kind of don't have a ton of history. You know, I meet people who are not ethnic in America, or I guess ethnic. Their ethnicity is
Everybody is.
European, white, whatever. And it's like, it's just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I got some grandparents and they lived in Minnesota and they were, I don't know, I mean, my grandfather, who I grew up with, Fernando Hernandez Casillas, in 1929, he rode a donkey from Jotepec, Mexico to America. I mean, it took him a while, but he did it. He stopped along the way, worked at a ranch in Guadalajara for a summer, and when he left, one of the rancher's daughters hopped on the back of that donkey and came with him. That was my grandmother, Catalina. I mean, that's that's a story I have, and I feel like no one younger than me is going to have that story anymore. Where it's going to be like, it's like, it's like, I don't know, my parents met on Tinder. They went on a date to Applebee's. She accidentally got pregnant. Anyway, they've hated each other ever since. It's just not the same.
Yeah, not the same. Not the same, definitely. Everything is so different. And especially, it's you mentioned, the example of people who say, well, my parents were from Minnesota or whatever. I have a friend who's an Irish American, and all her family is Irish American. So she says, well, in my case, there is the interesting thing of coming from the old country, but once they came, it's like that was it, because I know that's what she said. I know that I'm completely Irish. Yeah. She said there is no salad of people, no mixing there. And another person that I know from Barcelona, she came to the U.S. for an internship, and that's how we met. She was an intern at a project I was working on, and she said, she told me, it's you guys are so interesting. Everybody from the New World, from the Americas, is just so interesting. We're so boring. She's like, I am the first one who's left my town.
Oh, yeah.
And in the area of Barcelona where she's from. She says, I know where my grandparents, were born. I know, my grandparents, great-grandparents, everybody's from the same town. So if anything, whatever interesting thing that happens is going to start with me.
Yeah. Oh,
because she's the one who crossed the Atlantic to come to the U.S. And in fact, it has, because she ended up marrying someone in the U.S. and now lives here. And so, that's like the beginning of the adventure
of that story.
Yeah.
It's wild. Although I think Latinos, especially, there are other races also. I feel like Latinos especially are very family oriented and very keep generations close together of, a lot of times grandma living with kids and, growing up with aunts and uncles. My dad was like one of 14 kids. I mean, I have literally over 100 cousins just on my dad's side.
Wow.
My mom was one of 10 kids. So I've got a lot of family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, in Mexico, at least until I don't know, I suppose the 50s or something, families were still more numerous, not so much, in my case, it's not like that. I mean, my grandparents only had 2 daughters.
Wow,
Yeah, only 2. And, my mom had 2, my brother and I, and then her sister only had 1.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
A
little different. Is it big Catholic down in Panama?
Yes.
Yeah. Seems like most of Latin America.
It's a predominantly Catholic country.
Yeah.
And of course, like in most places, it's which is something that my husband, it took him a while to realize that it's more the cultural Catholicism, what you experience, more than the actual, more than the percentage of people that are really devout, really traditional, practicing Catholics. And so he understands it better. He's not a Catholic. He's he's a waspy guy. So but he's definitely learned a lot about Catholicism, because when we were going to get married, he had to do that course.
Yeah.
And he really enjoyed learning about it and reading about it. And he puts me to shame many times because he knows more than I do.
He just studied it more recently, you know. If you did a refresher course, you'd be fine.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
so,
Well, Sandra, tell before we get out of here for the night, tell people where, if you would like to, where they can find you on social media or anything, if you want them to follow you or anything coming up. Anything? Do you have anything like that, or?
I should, but I know I have Instagram.
Okay.
But, and of course follow me on Facebook, and on Instagram. I'll give you my Instagram handle, which is at Sandra, the number 2 SYO.
All right.
Sandra 2 SYO.
All right.
I have to make it more. Yeah, and then on Facebook, I'm working on a YouTube channel.
Okay.
Because I wanted to, to be punchy and interesting, not just post things.
Yeah.
I'm still toying with TikTok. My son is against TikTok because he thinks that would be embarrassing.
I still don't know how to use TikTok, so I just don't know how. I feel like every time I get on board with one social media app and figure out how to use it and get good at it, another one pops up that everyone says I should move to, and I'm like, listen, I got Facebook, I got Instagram, I'm done. That's all I got.
Well, that's kind of how I am. I mean, on Twitter, I'm also on Twitter.
Oh yeah, I forget about Twitter.
And, Twitter, I have to give you that. On Twitter, it is at Sandra M. Doss 3.
All right.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a play on words in Spanish because, as you know, my last name I think it's of German origin, but in Spanish, it phonetically, it means 2.
Yeah.
So Sandra M. Dos Tres.
All right, got it. There you go. Now I understand.
Yeah. It's almost like a Pitbull song.
That worldwide, Sandra worldwide over here. So, all right. Well, Sandra, we do you is there any mics coming up where people can catch you online or anything, or
Actually, I don't have anything coming up really soon.
Okay.
I'm going to be on a roast, but that's more to learn how to roast.
Okay.
And then I'm working on comedy in Spanish, both in Spanish and English. But I don't have any open mics lined up as of now.
That's all right. Hopefully, how's Philadelphia looking for opening back up? Where are they at?
Well, here's the thing. Philadelphia doesn't seem to be open, but New Jersey is. And there are 2 good open mics in Jersey. Yeah, live. I'm just not I'm a little apprehensive about going. I was going, but not anymore because I better get vaccinated before I do that.
Sure.
And so they're in Jersey. They're not far. They're closer to Atlantic City.
Okay.
And Philadelphia is not open as far as I know.
Okay.
And I don't know. I have to say that the whole thing of the vaccine is moving very slowly. And
Seems
so
like
I
it.
don't know when. Yeah, it's weird because North Carolina apparently has its act together.
Yeah. I just
There
went.
are people that are not in the any risk groups and they've gotten their vaccine already.
Really? Yeah. I just went the fast track route and got COVID. So now I don't. So I just did that instead. Now I don't need the vaccine because I'm already inoculated, right?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess for a little bit.
Yeah, they say they don't know if you can get it again or not, but I did have it back in October, and lucky for me, it was very, very easy. So.
Well, they don't know enough, so hopefully everybody's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very new.
Yeah, see, I can't do that because I'm an asthmatic. So I cannot take any chances.
You got to be careful.
Yeah. So so I'm going to be on Zoom until I get that vaccine, and then You'll see me everywhere.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing you everywhere. Back on this show eventually too, I hope. And
Yes, and I'll have stuff to promote.
Perfect. I love that. That's all right. Still want to talk to you and get to know you and hear your story. And next time I make it through the East Coast, I will. Let's do a show in Philadelphia. I've never been. Awesome. I want to go. Let's do it.
That's awesome. Let's stay in touch. That sounds very good.
All right. Sandra, I appreciate you being here. It's nice to meet you. And guys, everyone follow Sandra on Twitter, Facebook. You can find her new channel on YouTube coming soon, so keep an eye out for that. And as shows come up in Philadelphia, I'm sure you'll see her around the area and beyond also, so keep an eye out for that. As for me, guys, go to deececomedy.com. Check out everything going on. We do have some live events, some new shows, and a lot of stuff brewing around the network. So keep an eye and ears peeled on everything there. That's it, guys. For the social hour, I've been Deece, and for Sandra, thank you very much again.
Thanks for the interview.
Thank you, and we will see you all next week, guys.